Prepare yourself for the terror. The prison of madness, where few enter and none return.
Welcome to Unsung Horrors with Lance and Erica.
Leave all your sanity behind. It can't help you now.
Welcome to another episode of Unsung Horrors, a podcast where we discuss underseen horror films, specifically those with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica.
And we have a third person joining us for this episode.
Yay.
So this is a person we've referenced on multiple occasions in past episodes because he writes, reviews, and dishes out pretty much all the facts and production histories of some of our favorite movies. Most of them are eligible for, Unsung Horrors, less than 1,000 views picks. And he posts them on his wonderful site, B&S About Movies, as well as a weekly podcast of the same name. And every time I think I find an absolute gem, an underseen horror gem that I'm like, okay, nobody has seen this. Nobody's going to have logged this on Letterboxd. There he is with his reviews and his logs. Of course, I'm talking about Sam Panico. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
I feel the same way about you guys. This happens. There's the one Manchester Morgue, the Asian one that you guys
Monstrous Corpse. Yeah.
Of course, I'm like, how did this exist? And I didn't know about it. I got so excited. So that's why I started listening to your guys' show in the first place. Because I'm like I look at these movie drugs is what I always call them. And I'm like, am I ever going to run out of movie drugs? And I'm like, no, these guys are going to find stuff I'm not going to find. So I'm glad that it works both ways. I'm glad that we can trade substances, so to speak.
I mean, I'm just, glad that there's other people out there who share the same kind of passion and digging around in the Philippines and being like, fuck yeah, this is like, stick it in my veins. Like, give me this stuff.
I discovered that the Philippines make awesome end of the world movies. There's one, W is War, that's insane. It has a cyborg werewolf. Ooh. And it just gets crazier and crazier. And Mad Warriors, the sequel, which is even wilder. And I'm like, they always have tricycles instead of motorcycles. So I'm once you start discovering there's other cultures out there, and you get past what did they say? The 2-inch hurdle of the subtitles, or whatever they call it, or no subtitles. I love when you find a movie on a Russian hack site and it has someone yelling Russian over 2 other languages, and it has hard coded subs. And you're like, I don't have any idea what's happening. That's exactly what I want. I just want to be baffled by the things that I find, and then try to deduce where did this come from? Who made it? How did it get to me? Because someone had to make it and someone had to put it together. And the stuff I love hearing you guys talk about the same things. I remember the first time I heard you mention I got this in Cave of Forgotten Films. I'm like, oh my God, other people are in the cave.
Yeah.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
Yeah. And you track all this information down on your site, B&S About Movies. Can you share some of the info on how you created the site, where people can find it?
Yeah, so it's just people always call it Bands About Movies, right? B&S About Movies, because my wife's name is Becca and I'm Sam. So we were laughing one night. It's B&S About Movies. We used to do a podcast. I'm like, well, I should just do a whole site, because I watch, as you can tell, a ton of movies a day. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I should. And I was writing for another site, and they would always take forever to put them up. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I control the means of production and just do this myself? And and then I won't feel as bad for as much stuff as I'm sure you guys are in the same boat, how much physical media I buy all the time.
Yeah.
So it's at least I'm I can't write it off, but at least I'm doing something with it. And then that was about 5 or 6 years ago. And then I just got really into it. And Bill Van Ryn, who I do the Driving Asylum video show with, he was doing his zine, and I was starting to write for his zine. And it was so much fun writing for Driving Asylum. He's like, you should just do this all the time. He's like, here's some ways that I got started, and just ended up happening. I've always watched this many movies and always been into trying to find them. But I think we all got into it probably similarly. I'm 52. So I was the end of the Monster Kid era, right? I still got UHF horror hosts. We had Chili Billy in Pittsburgh until 83. So, up until I was 11, there was horror movies on every night. Cleveland had Superhost. And then I went straight from that into the video era, into oh, well, what else is, you always have to make that jump, right? To like, either you stop watching these and don't care, or you're like, oh, I got the books like Incredibly Strange films, the research book, or like Mondo Macabro. Once I start getting those books, I'm like, oh, it's over. Like, I'm just going to start. But, you know, isn't it wild today, though, that like, this is why I get upset, because I always hear you guys talk about too. It's like, why would you waste your time with a lot of movies that anyone can watch, when it's like every movie's literally almost at our fingertips now.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could find these movies, that's, I think, why, like, I get excited. I'm happy that you guys said those things. Like, you find me finding these, because like some of them, it's like a beyond needle in a haystack to find these movies. And I get obsessed about, oh, someday I'm going to get to see that. Like The Astrologer was one of those for me, where I was like, I'm never going to see this movie. And then like it turned up on Internet Archive for like a day, and I'm like, I'm right. Like, I searched every day for it for like 4 years, and I'm like, then I watched it and it totally lived up to what I wanted it to be. Right? Like, it was like, my wife even liked it. She was like, what is going on in this movie? But so I started doing that. And then I actually saw someone on your guys' site say on the Discord, which I love, like, oh, he used to do a podcast. I'm like, I should start doing a podcast again. Like, I have so much free time. And so I started doing that. It's like anything to get out. Like, if I can get my joy of movies into other people and infect them with it, then that's what I want. Like, I want people to love the fact that like we can experience these things. Like, I hate when I hear people say, oh, I'm bored. Like, I'm never bored. Like, you should never be bored. There's too much to do.
Yeah.
Like, there's too many things to see.
Yeah, I love the weekly podcast, because they're like, 15 minutes or less. It's really, it's just cool little blurbs that you get every week, just constant content, which I love.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's what I listen to so many podcasts, and like, I like them when they're long, but it's like sometimes I'm just going to the store and I want something to listen to. So I was like, what if I did these like bite-sized ones? There was a couple of podcasts I was listening to about music that would just do like a single and talk about a song real briefly, and that was kind of like my inspiration on it. And I was like, yeah, I should do that. So thanks. Yeah, I'm having fun doing them. And like, I'm always trying to think, like, does this make sense for it or not? Like, this week is Rhinestone and Staying Alive, which are horrible. And I'm like, I don't want to be like a bad movie podcast, because I hate when people talk down on movies, right? Because I think every movie is somebody's favorite, even Rhinestone, which is,
that's how I feel.
Like, I can't believe Bob.
Oh my God, dude.
It's so weird, because it's like Bob Clark directed it, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, how did you do? Like, but he also did Super Geniuses, right? The baby movie. So it's like,
just such the weirdest filmography. Like, every time I look at like what he's filmed, and I'm like, oh, that
A Christmas Story, and then Black Christmas.
and
like,
then
it's
this, and then that. Oh my God, it's so weird. Anyway,
he did the alpha and omega of Christmas movies. The most hopeful Christmas movie and the least hopeful. A movie that ends with you not even knowing the killer, which is awesome. Like, it's great. When we went to the house is really close to us. It's like an hour and a half away where they shot A Christmas Story. Okay. We went and we did the tour, and one part they talk about is like, when Bob Clark came to Cleveland, people thought he was a lunatic, because like he had done Porky's and Black Christmas and Children Shouldn't Play with That Thing, shouldn't sleep with that thing either. And they watched his movies, and they're like, we can't let him make this movie in our town. And he had to like literally read the script for him. And he was like, it's this hopeful. It's like, it's my childhood. And then they knew, obviously the writer had, been a big radio guy. That's how it got made. But it's like, yeah, if you think about it, if he did come to your town, you'd be like, oh, what else have you done? Well, I did this sex movie about the 50s. And I did this movie where a girl gets a unicorn shoved in her eye. Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, you can make it here. I can't believe you like Rhinestone, but I won't judge you. You also like the worst movie to ever be made in my hometown, too, Bloodsucking Pharaohs.
Yeah, another Alan Smithy.
Yeah, I want to apologize to Erica for that movie.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Lance never apologized for it.
I drive through the area where it was shot. Like, the area where it's shot, when it was shot at the time, it was very like run down and nobody cared. Now it's like the hippest part of Pittsburgh.
The movie made it that.
No. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
It just brings joy and just success wherever it's been.
We played a show with Acid Witch, the one metal band. They did that Midnight Movies album, and like they love this stuff. And like they're like, "Oh my God, we're right where they shot Bloodsucking Pharaohs." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. Like, I don't want to judge you guys. I really had a good time doing the show with you." And,
Well, there's only one double feature pick for our movie we're going to be talking about, and that is Bloodsucking Pharaohs. Another Alan Smithy.
You can have it. You can fucking have it.
Yeah. Okay.
Another Egyptian Alan Smithy movie, right? It's perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, this episode we're talking about another Alan Smithy movie, Appointment with Fear from 1985.
The Egyptians had something to say about dreams. They believed that when a person sleeps, his other self goes out and does things.
Appointment with Fear. When love turns to hate.
I need him.
Where life becomes death.
Must kill his baby in order for him to be king for another year.
Appointment with Fear. Is it fantasy or is it reality?
He's the craziest of all the crazies.
Appointment with Fear. You decide.
You can find it streaming on YouTube. It has only 262 views on Letterboxd. Do I really need to try and give a summary here? Or
It's not possible.
It isn't, right?
No.
Like I can give it a go, but I feel like we should just jump into the cast and crew and then try.
I feel like if folks really at this point want a summary before we jump in, go back and listen to the end of the last episode where Lance gives the synopses from Letterboxd and IMDb, neither of which are correct, although a couple of points in each one are sort of correct.
Yeah.
But not even the right picture.
Yeah, no.
The IMDb, the picture from My Demon
Lover.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Scott Valentine movie.
Yeah, I pulled that up
Yeah.
in the Discord and I was like, oh, is this in the movie? This looks great. And Lance was like, it's not even in the movie. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ.
It would make Appointment with Fear make more sense if it was in the movie.
The internet doesn't even have anything right about this. Like, just it's a general search. It's chaos.
I have a theory about the summary of the movie, if it helps.
I would like to hear it.
Have you guys ever read the Mothman Prophecies, like the John Keel book?
I have not.
Okay, so like it's way deeper than the movie, and John Keel was like a Fordian parapsychologist, but he believed that like the men in black that he met that came to talk to him about what he saw in Point Pleasant were not human, that were like from some other dimension and could only approximate reality. So like as they were talking to him at a restaurant, they would try to put food into their ears, or they would like try to eat a pencil. And he's like, oh, they only know what it's like to be human from things they've seen, but they don't know the experience. That's what this movie is. It's like it knows what movies are and it knows how stories happen, but it doesn't know how to put them together. And it's just like this weird transmission from another dimension where this movie makes sense in Dimension X or wherever it's come from. Here, we don't have no idea what it is. Like technically, yes, it is a movie. It has somewhat of a beginning, middle, and end. It has actors in it. Maybe somebody directed it. Maybe somebody edited it. Like the cinematographer did a lot of other films, but none of these things came together.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. It's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you see Alan Smithy directing credit, you know that there's going to be problems with that movie. Yeah, for a lot of for anybody who's not aware, Alan Smithy, it's a fake name. It's a pseudonym used by film directors that they're unhappy, they lose creative control over their film altogether, and they just want to disown the film, have their name removed.
They're not allowed to use it anymore either. It ended in like the 90s, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it was part of the guild. Like they recognized Alan Smithy as a directing credit, and I think I'd read it ended with Walter Hill's Supernova. Is that the movie he did in 2005? So. And he wanted to use Alan Smithy, but they're like, no, you can't. So he created Thomas Lee.
Oh, so my favorite anti-Alan Smithy is when David Lynch did Dune. The TV release. Yeah, the TV release is Judas Booth. Which is Judas Iscariot and John Wilkes Booth put together. That's how mad he was about that movie.
Aww.
Well, Michael Mann too. He disapproved like so much of the TV cut for Heat, saying it destroyed the narrative. That he wanted to use Alan Smithy for that.
I love that. Like when Jodorowsky went to see Dune, he was so worried about it, he threw up in the parking lot, and he was like, "Oh, everybody's going to love this movie." That's not. I could do a better accent for that. And then so finally he went in and saw it, and he just started laughing like a maniac. And he's like, "It's horrible. I love it." And like people have no idea who this little Chilean man is that was like going nuts in the theater. I love that.
But yeah, other Alan Smithy movies, like I'm sure you have a ton, Sam. Like Bill Lustig's Maniac Cop 3. This
Yeah.
one, Hellraiser Bloodline, which we both love.
I love that movie. I'm sorry. I don't know why anyone would Alan Smithy that movie.
I mean, yeah, you can kind of.
No. I know it's because like the producers or whoever wanted to change a bunch of shit in it, and they probably did. But like, I'm sorry, that movie is. I saw that in the theater when I was in high school with my friend Scott, and the movie opens with the fucking robot playing with the fucking box, and it's like, how do you not love this movie? And it's got the whole like weird flashback thing. Adam Scott, like, come on, I love it.
It's way better than, I mean, it's funny because people are like, oh, that's horrible. I'm like, just wait. Because like there's so many other Hellraiser movies where they're like, this started, almost every one on IMDb starts with, this was another movie.
Yeah.
And then a new producers came in and said, let's make it a Hellraiser movie.
Yeah. I've seen all of them. And I can confidently say like, yeah, ranking goes 1, 2, 4, 3, Hell World, and then all the rest. Lumped together.
The last one that came out, I was like, God, I hope nobody champions this movie, the streaming one.
Oh, I haven't seen that one on Hulu.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna love it, yeah.
I saw that was one of the Fantastic Fest secret screenings last year. I was big mad, as the kids say. Yeah. I was big mad.
Yeah, there's a couple Alan Smithy movies I love. Like, have you ever seen the Dennis Hopper movie Catch Fire?
No.
Or Backtracks, the other title. It's really weird. It's like him, it's one of his like comeback movies, but supposedly he relapsed while directing it. And it's like about like, he's an assassin. It's not good, but it's really interesting, I guess. And then Twilight Zone, the movie, is another one because the assistant director asked for his name to be taken off with good reason. Student Bodies is kind of another one, which I kind of like. And City in Fear. Judd Taylor directed that and asked for his name to be taken off that too. The last one I could find, you know what, the other one, it's not good, but The Birds 2, Land's End. That's another one, the Rick Rosenthal one where he asked for one of my friends was a PA on that movie. He's like, oh, Rick Rosenthal was great. He loved everything we were shooting. And when it came out, he took his name off it.
Oh.
Yeah, of course he did. He always got like suckered into doing sequels. Like everybody hates Halloween 2, which my wife and I love it, but it's like, he probably didn't direct a lot of it either. Do you know what I mean? Like, Carpenter was there doing the TV one. I love Maniac Cop 3. I think it's awesome. And I guess it was just the fight over who directed what led to the Alan Smithy.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, and I'd read that the first use of the pseudonym was in 1968 or 69 for a Western called Death of a Gunfighter, where one of the stars, Richard Widmark, he didn't like the original director, and he had enough pull to talk the studio into replacing him. And
Robert Totten, and he replaced him with Don Siegel.
Yeah, Don Siegel. Yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and neither directed wanted their name on this film. Yeah, they were like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. So
it's so hard to come in, right? Like when a movie's like 3/4 done and you're doing pickups, like, I don't want my name on this.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because usually you don't have control over the final cut. You didn't direct what maybe the majority of the movie might be. So I totally get it.
I was just writing about The Terror the other day, the Corman movie, and there's like 7 directors.
It's like it's like what is it, Bloodbath, where they have so many chopped
3 on that, I think, if I remember correctly. It's been a few years, but
it started because he was like, oh, I have this set for another day. This is every Roger Corman story. I have this set, and also I have Boris Karloff for 2 hours. I should start filming him. And there was no script. He's just like, just act important and I'll interview you. And then by the end, like, Jack Nicholson's shooting footage of a flood. And like his wife at the time was not pregnant in the beginning of the movie, obviously pregnant at the end of it. It's like when you go back and watch it now, you're like, wow, that movie's crazy. And like Monty Hellman directed part of it. Like there's so many people. Francis Ford Coppola did and brought in, he worked for 14 days on it. And he said, I worked on this for 2 weeks. And Corman's like, you're supposed to do a day. And they didn't hardly use any of his footage. So it's like, I love it. I love the weird Roger Corman stories. Like they're just, and they're all true. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course they are.
Yeah. So the Alan Smithy here in Appointment with Fear is Ramsey Thomas, who he didn't direct any other films, but he had a Hollywood producer that did interfere with his vision and decided to reshoot scenes. And that's the great Moustapha Akkad. So everybody knows Akkad for producing and financing Carpenter's 1978 Halloween and basically every Halloween sequel up until Resurrection in 2002.
Well,
Now his son's an executive producer. On
Yeah,
it.
Malik. Yeah. And this is actually Appointment with Fear. I found out that he was a production assistant. At 16 years old, this is Malik Akkad's first film credit. So good on him. But yeah, he took over all the Rob Zombie and Blumhouse Halloween films that started happening in 2007. So he's carrying that torch.
Yeah, I know. Back to Ramsey Thomas real quick. I know he didn't direct anything else, but I did watch one film that he was a line producer on. And I was very excited about this and I didn't look at Letterboxd first and I should have, because then I would have seen that everyone I follow thinks this movie sucks. And they're right. But listen to this cast: Wesley Snipes, Dennis Hopper, Tony LoBianco, Viggo Mortensen, Lolita Davidovich, Tobin Bell, Christina Elise from Child's Play 2, Seymour Cassell, Jonathan Banks. Boiling Point from 1993. This movie fucking honks. I'm so mad that I watched it. It's so boring.
That's when people are like, is that Mila the singer in this movie and not Mila the actress? Is that the girl that sang Gentleman Who Fell? Yes, it is.
It's just, anyway, I had to bring that up because I spent an hour and a half on it. I had to bring it up in the episode.
I almost watched it for the show, so I'm glad I didn't. I know he was a production manager on Stargate too, speaking of.
Oh, yeah.
And Halloween 5.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I guess there was no ill will towards, Akkad, so I'm sure he was happy with that paycheck.
Yeah.
I can imagine he brought him in. He's like, yeah, you didn't do too well. Right. I don't like any of this movie.
Well, and there's so many similarities too with Appointment with Fear to Halloween 6, Curse of Michael Myers. There's a lot. Totally.
Yeah.
I feel like Akkad's like, he grabbed some script writers, some screenwriters, and he's like, hey, watch my movie from 1985 called Appointment with Fear and come back to me with a Halloween script. And I
love that Akkad, they kept pushing in 5 the Man in Black,
right?
Of like what a big deal he was, and nobody had any idea who he was. Even when they started shooting 6, they had no idea who that character was. Like, that's crazy. Like, the whole beginning of 6 is reshot because originally he was, or it's 5 maybe. My wife would yell at me because I'm off. But it starts like Frankenstein, where they find Michael Myers' body. It is 5, yeah, and like an old man nurses him back to health.
Right.
But it was supposed to be like a satanic teenager that like found him and brought him back to health. Like, there's all like, and there's like so many cuts of 6. I love 6 because it's so dumb. They're like, let's lean into how dumb this movie is. Like, let's have a whole cult.
If you embrace the dumb, I'm with you. Like 100%.
Yeah, Paul Rudd, who is like all into surveillance too, just like in Michelle Little. It's bizarre. But they have like Beavis and Butthead references in part 6. It's very a product of its time, and I'm a big fan of.
And Howard Stern was supposed to be in it too.
Oh wow!
He was supposed to be the shock jock in it. It's wild that he's not. I love that, like, everybody crapped on those movies. And then when the Blumhouse ones got made, there's references to 5 and 6 all through them. And they're like, are we supposed to hate these movies or not hate them? Are we supposed to forget them? And like, every new one that Blumhouse put out moved 5 and 6 up my list of like ranking of what Halloweens I like better. Do you know what I mean? Like, they did it. Like, it was like a public service job to make me like Rob Zombie's Halloween finally. Like, they're like, could we make something crappier? Yeah, we can try. And then let's do it again. And like, that's one of the, like, I've seen my wife mad at me a few times, right? We've been married 10 years. Like, during the second and third one, there were moments in the theater I looked at her as someone that's watched Halloween 2 in the thousands of times. And she just looked at me. She's like, I can't believe I hate this movie this much. Like, she would think she wanted to cry. Like, she was like, they ruined it. And I'm like, I know. Yeah. But it's close. Yeah. This thematically is 6, but also with Egyptian gods.
Right. Like pagan ritualistic stuff going on. Even like a Loomis character, Kowalski's kind of Loomis-y.
Yeah.
Kowalski's even worse than. I love that Loomis becomes slowly more deranged.
Yeah.
As the movies end,
pulling out guns every 5 seconds.
And 2, like, he gets a kid killed in the beginning of 2, right? Like, just because he goes, "There's Michael Myers," and then a cop car comes out of nowhere and hits him, and you're like, yeah, that he had blonde hair. Like, obviously that wasn't Michael Myers. Like, I can't believe it.
I thought it was Michael.
I thought it was him. And then like. And then in 1, he's still kind of wacky. Like, I love whenever those kids are like trying to sneak in the house, and he's like, get out of here. And he's like kind of like throwing his voice, and like, he's so proud of himself. I've watched that scene like 10 times in a row. I'm like, look how pleased he is. It's not my favorite. My favorite Donald Pleasance is in that there's one Italian movie where he eats at a Wendy's salad bar.
Oh, nothing underneath.
Nothing underneath. Yeah. And it's like a whole scene of him eating. And my wife's like, Wendy's never had a salad bar. I'm like, oh, you're 13 years old.
Oh yeah, it did.
Yeah. They had a great salad bar and
baked potatoes and
their food costs had to be nuclear, right? Like they never do that. Anyway, I'm sorry getting off subject. Kowalski is a mess.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. I know.
Yeah,
we get to it. He's the like.
It's hard to pick a favorite character from this movie, but he might be mine.
Okay.
He can't even smoke properly. Like, he burns his heart out twice.
He has no idea how to put out a cigarette. Like, he just thinks it's a.
And like, smoking makes you. Smoking makes you cool. Like, it makes him less cool.
It does.
Because like the way he lights it, it's like, what are you doing?
Takes one puff, throws it out. Yeah.
My wife he's wasting his cigarettes, and I'm like, I know.
But yeah, getting back to Akkad, like he's produced obviously all these Halloween films. He did direct a few films, 3 technically, but he simultaneously shot one film called The Messenger in 1976, filmed one in English and one in Arabic. It was about the Prophet Muhammad becoming the messenger of God, the whole birth of the Islamic faith. Have you seen those, Sam?
I haven't seen them, but they were really hard to make because obviously you can't show Muhammad.
Yeah.
Right. So, that was the thing. Yeah. It was very tough to do. I watched the English version with Anthony Quinn, starring Anthony Quinn. And basically every scene where Muhammad is, talking to Anthony Quinn, he's basically just looking directly in the camera. Yeah. Pretty much the camera is the perspective of Muhammad in some scenes.
He used Anthony Quinn twice too.
The Lion of the Desert, which I also watched, and I loved that. It was about Omar Mukhtar. He was a Muslim rebel who fought against the Italian invasion of Libya in the early 1930s. If it's factually, accurate, I couldn't tell you. It's like a lot of war dramas and stuff, but completely entertaining. Like Anthony Quinn is amazing in it. It also stars Oliver Reed, who's
I'm in.
He's like the main kind of Italian. Rob Steiger plays Mussolini.
What?
Yeah,
this is a dream cast. I'm telling you.
All these movies too are like about 3 hours long.
Oh wow! Okay,
so they're
save that
epics.
for November.
Yeah,
but they're really well made. I mean, Akkad, like he went to Libya and he financed most of them. He truly hoped that these would like find a North American audience, to kind of shine a better light on Islamic faith. And he financed most of the films, but he needed much more money. So I don't think this helped the cause when Muammar Gaddafi was a financer and a big producer.
Yeah.
And like a lot of Muslim countries wouldn't let him shoot there because they were so concerned that he would show Muhammad. So like Libya finished out the film. He was, like you said, the message of it was important because when he went to school, like he had $200 and his dad gave him a copy of the Quran and he left for UCLA and like he read it all the time. So like he really like was a true believer and thought, could this be the movie that brings our cultures together? Both times.
Yeah. And I read an NPR interview where he said he felt like it was his obligation to tell the truth of like about Islam. And like you said, Sam, he was super passionate about it and really hopeful that this would kind of turn things around. But as far as
it's interesting that he made, like, he wanted to make a movie that brought people together, and like Sam Peckinpah was his mentor. Yeah. I can't think of a worse person to be your mentor.
Yeah, he obviously loved Lawrence of Arabia. He was going after Anthony Quinn. Actually, the score for The Messenger was nominated for an Academy Award because he got the same composer from Lawrence of Arabia. And
then before he died, he was trying to make a movie with Sean Connery about Saladin and the Crusades would be shot in Jordan. It was like an $80 million budget. He also almost got involved with Canon because he tried to buy Pinewood from the Rank organization, which bought Canon later. It gets nuts when it's like, what does MGM own of Canon, 21st century, all these like interconnected companies. But yeah, he was one of the big money men involved with that.
Yeah, and he was like very active up until his death. I mean, he sadly passed away in 2005, 75 years old. Yeah, he and his 34-year-old daughter traveled to Jordan for a wedding, and when a suicide bomber went into the Grand Hyatt hotel lobby that they were staying at and blew the place up, she was immediately killed, and he passed away shortly after in the hospital. So it was like a series of coordinated Al-Qaeda suicide bombs that were happening in Amman, Jordan. But super sad because he was kind of a positive, trying to spread the word of the Islamic faith and stuff in all countries. But He was a hard worker up until the end. Like he was still going.
And like a school and a street in his hometown are named after him. So I guess he would always send money back and really help people back in his native country. He didn't forget like where he came from. Like it was a big deal to him. So it is sad. Like who knows, what else he would have kept making. I like that. I always love when directors go into their 70s and keep making stuff instead of just sitting back.
Yeah. And I did read that the Messenger, like you said, in his home country, like that's like a staple in households. Like it's kind of like a Christmas Story probably in America, or like a bunch of like, Christmas Vacation. Like a lot of families watch that movie together.
I love when countries had that. Like Australia at New Year's Eve, Can't Stop the Music, the Village People movie is like their New Year's Eve movie. What? Like that's the craziest thing. Like who does that? Yeah. It's like Vancouver is the only city where Phantom of the Paradise did well. So they have like all these like big events for Phantom of the Paradise. No one else in the world cares about it. I do. You know what I mean? Yeah, I love it. But I love when like little pockets of the world discover this, because I always think like if you think about it, like when did people start hating on movies? Like when the Great Train Robbery came out, people thought a train was coming out of the screen to kill them, right? And then within 2 years, there were movie critics like, "Well, this is boring." Like, but don't you remember when you thought it was sorcery? Like, nah, but this one's bad. Like, so when people find the good in movies like that, like Can't Stop the Music, I think that's heartwarming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to try to do that with Appointment with Fear, but I don't know.
Michael, now I had a dream about this not a waking dream, but I was like, what if? Because so many movies you guys bring up end up getting these boutique releases. Boutique, I can't pronounce words right. These beautiful releases, right? Imagine if like you guys have your ear or your voice to the industry, like Vinegar Syndrome is going to be like, you know what? We're going to pull the trigger on it. We've been waiting for Appointment with Fear.
It needs to happen.
Yeah,
it really does.
I want it to happen.
I mean, this is one of those that, you had on a previous Blu-ray wishlist episode. I can't remember which movie it was, but you said the movie
It's my double feature pick for this.
Oh, okay.
I can say it right now. It's Larry Cohen's Wicked Stepmother.
Okay, because because the special features would be like the draw for it. Really, it's like 100%. All of the making of everything behind it, and it's like, yeah, sure, watch the film if you want. With Sam's drink and then the commentary and then all the special features. Yeah.
I love you even more, Lance, because I love Wicked Stepmother because Michael Greer from Messiah of Evil is the voice.
Yes. I learned that from actually reading your review and after I watched it.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, like it connects so many. It's like a nexus point of like, like all these people I love are in this. And also my favorite movie trope is whenever somebody has to show a picture of themselves and it's their publicity picture. Whenever they show Lionel Standard's wife, and it's and it's like, wow, like I can't believe they went there. Like they just used a publicity picture of her. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, Betty Davis just saying, "Fuck all, I'm just halfway shoot." I mean, there's. Yeah, it's my double feature pick for Appointment with Fear.
Yeah.
Just
my God, that's a great one.
Well,
because of like, I get the whole cast and crew that are still around for interviews. Yeah. Like, it'd be amazing just to listen to.
So yeah, maybe this will get on there as well. We'll see.
Both of them. But yeah, I mean, obviously this is an Alan Smithy film, so there are many editors involved here. There's a Herbert L. Strock that Sam. Have you chatted with him? You said.
No, I looked him up, and he directed a lot of 50s horror. The Crawling Hand, The Devil's Messenger, How to Make a Monster, Blood of Dracula, Gog. I was a Teenage Frank.
I love Gog.
Yeah, and I was a Teenage Frankenstein, and he edited Carnival of Souls, uncredited.
Oh.
Night Screams, which is after this movie, so that makes sense. And Donovan's Brain. So like he did a lot of stuff. That's what blows my mind, where he did this, and Mark Rosenbaum, the other editor, he did tons of Sun International movies, like In Search of Historic Jesus, The Boogans. But I have talked to the director of those. It's coming out pretty soon. One Dark Night, Break-In for Canon, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Reform School Girls. So both these guys have edited some great stuff.
Also, Unlikely Angel, starring Dolly Parton.
Oh my God, I forgot to bring that one.
That movie's so weird.
I love Dolly TV movies. Like they're my favorite. And Paul Jessico, I'm never going to pronounce that right. Jessiconis, the third editor, he edited the Sonny Bono drug video that Sonny Bono had to do when he got busted for weed. So he did that, and he edited the sound editor on Supervan, which is one of my favorite movies, and the Clonus Horror and Star Hops. So we're talking that's the quality right there. That's where you're looking for.
Yeah, there's a lot of editors involved. You can kind of feel it.
Yeah.
But Herbert Straub did, like you said, Gog's a good movie. Like, he has seen movies before, right?
I guess.
I feel like Appointment with Fear is probably at a state with what they had. There was like, you can't, let's turn it into something. Let's make 90 minutes of something.
I feel like Sam mentioned something earlier. I can't remember if it was recording or pre-recording, but like, or people just gave up at a certain point where they were like, I did what I could, and here's, it's not finished yet. And Akkad was maybe just like, just fuck it. Just here's a poster. We're going to sell it this way and we're done. Like, let's move on. I don't know.
Let me tell you the theory of good enough. It doesn't work. But what's really weird too is like some of the folks in it, like the other producer is Tom Boutros, and he worked on like all Charles Pierce's movies. He was the editor of Town That Dreaded Sundown, Legend of Chikara, Bootleggers, like Winterhawk, and then he directed The Hideous Sun Demon and the Banana Splits TV show, which is how do you do that? And he was the production manager. I always try to get Night Train to Terror into stuff. Philip Jordan's other big movie is Savage Journey, which is the story of the history of the Mormons, and it has almost the entire same cast and crew as Night Train to Terror. And it's even weirder, if possible. And he was a production manager on that movie. So like he worked on stuff. He did stuff. How?
Maybe everyone just had like a talent lapse when they were working on this film. I mean,
I'm kind of surprised that like the whole crew isn't just like edited by Alan Smithy, produced by Alan, like just boom, boom, boom.
That's a dream movie right there.
Yeah. I think this would be the closest to that, honestly.
I don't know if you looked up who shot it. That's what blew me
the cinematographer, Nicholas von Sternberg.
I had fun with him.
Yeah, I saw you watched a bunch of his movies.
Yes.
I mean, he has like the films that everybody's seen: Dolomite, Petey Wheatstraw, Tourist Trap, Hospital Massacre. He even shot Peter Bogdanovich's film Texasville.
Yeah.
Which is just with Jeff Bridges and Sybil Shepherd. What did you watch, Erica?
I had fun. So I started with Death Drug from 1978, which is Philip Michael Thomas addicted to PCP. It's on YouTube. It starts with a disclaimer from Philip Michael Thomas, who, like, you can tell he's very proud of his performance in this, as well he should be, because he goes off the rails in this. It's a lot of fun. There's just these crazy moments of him just like yelling at his dad. There's songs in it from, I should have written down the name of the band, that there's like performances, like they just go out to celebrate the fact that he got into some musical institute program. He's a musician and he ruins his life because of PCP. Don't do drugs, kids, or do you, whatever. But, and so they go and they dance, and there's great music, and he's playing the piano, and he's just so fucking excited, and life is great. And then he gets hooked on PCP, and everything goes to shit. And the thing is, it's like, who's this for? Like, you don't tell kids about PCP, do you? Is this like an adult driven anti-drug message movie? It's so weird.
What's his gateway drug? Like, if you start with PCP, like, there's nowhere to go.
His gateway was he was smoking weed, and then and then he graduated to Sherm stick, and then it was PCP after that. So anyway, highly recommend. It's on YouTube. Check it out. I watched Out of Sight, Out of Mind, 1990 with Wingshauser. It's basically a gaslighting, driving the woman crazy type thing. Child dies at the beginning. There's a serial killer with a great name, the Kabuki Killer, who wears a Kabuki mask and is killing a bunch of people. This woman's daughter and her lawyer are killed, and she can't get over it. And it's kind of obvious what has happened in it and who the villain is. I'm sorry, because Wingshauser is in it, and so you kind of have to know what's going to happen with it. Mm-hmm. I still had fun with it, but there's just not enough wings in it, which I could say for any movie that has Wingshauser in it.
And that was Graydon Clark, who looks like Sternberg. He shot a bunch of his movies.
He worked with him a lot. Another one was Final Justice from 1985. Okay. Sam, have you seen this one?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So you understand that my frustration with this is that this is like the greatest premise you could possibly put on paper. You have Joe Don Baker, who stars as Texas Ranger Thomas Jefferson Geronimo III. And he encounters these Italian mafia guys on the Texas border. He kills one of them, arrests the other one, and then somehow a Texas Ranger is assigned to extradite him back to Sicily. But the plane has to land in Malta because the Italian guy had some people fuck with the plane or whatever. So they end up in Malta. So it's Joe Don Baker, fish out of water in Malta. And then from there, the movie is just set on the repeat button because it's like Joe Don going after the Italian guy. Oops, he gets arrested by the local cops and you show him in the prison and then he argues with the lieutenant and he gets out and the lieutenant wags his finger and says, don't do that. And then Joe Don Baker still goes after the guy. It's on repeat like that for the whole movie. And it's really frustrating because I wanted to love this movie very much.
How cool would it be if George Eastman was like the main bad guy?
Oh my God.
Oh,
Stop
nice.
making it the better movie when it already exists and I can't fix it now.
And his eyes would just be bugging out and he goes, I must kill Joe Don Baker. Also, I love that we live in a reality where Joe Don Baker was a sex symbol at one point.
Oh my God. It's the funniest
It makes
thing to
me feel like body type, like I'm in shape compared to Joe Don Baker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I love it. He also did, he shot Dr. Alien, which is pretty wild. Wacko and Joysticks. And then here's the weirdest one. He was the publicity photographer on One from the Heart. How do you get that job? Like, I love that. I love that movie so much because like everybody's like, oh, it was so weird that Coppola directed it from inside a trailer and he didn't see anybody. I'm like, that's all directors do today. They like, direct from afar and do like video assistant stuff. But back then people were like, oh, this is such a strange way of doing movies. Yeah, Joseph von Sternberg's like, it was like a weird like unlock of like, he did Down on Us, the movie about all the young rock singers that die early. It's like an early conspiracy movie. He did that. He shot that too, about the 27 Club,
Right?
And how it was like a conspiracy of course it was, that it happened. And like all these movies, like the Sun International movies or Sun Classics movies, and those. It's so weird because today those are just basic cable, but back then people had to go to the theater and see them.
So I have one more crew member to talk about, unless you guys have any more. But the composer, I'm probably going to butcher her name, but Andrea Saparov. She's still working. She's doing a lot of commercial work as well as arranging and releasing her own albums. I looked her up. She's on Spotify, YouTube, all the streaming services. Has 5 albums out there. Most of them I listen to them quite a bit actually. They're like 2.5, 3.5 minute little just instrumentals that sound like they're made for scoring. Mm-hmm. So you can get kind of lost in them. But she did a lot of TV work. Like I said, commercials. She did Matlock series for a couple of years, the paranormal series Sightings from the early 90s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She did the original score for Outside the Law in 2002, which starred Cynthia Rothrock. Yeah. And like I said, I was listening to her music. And as I was interneting her site popped up and I went ahead and contacted her and she emailed like an hour later, which was really awesome. But I asked her like if she had any recollection or memories of working with Ramsey Thomas or Moustapha Akkad or anything about Appointment with Fear that she could share. And she said that it was like so long ago when she composed this that she had very little recollection of the production, but she remembers scoring the film using a Fairlight CMI, which was the first computer synth introduced in 1979.
Okay.
Which is interesting. She calls herself a musical nerd, very experimental, and you hear that in her records. She said she did have a creative meeting while spotting the film with Ramsey Thomas, but she couldn't recall him playing any tint music that he liked for her or even making any music suggestions other than just saying, keep it in the horror genre, which, she said she had a lot of help with from the musical supervisor from Appointment, which was John Carpenter Jr. And I looked him up and he was, he's been working in films for, decades and decades, working as a music editor, supervisor, producer. I'm talking Walter Hill's The Warriors, RoboCop 2, The Muppet Movie, The Ninth Configuration, Cheech and Chong's next movie. So she was like, I was in really good hands. He was a music coordinator for Tony Garnett's Deep in the Heart, which was interesting. Absolutely. He's a pro in the music departments. And then I asked her about the songs, the original songs in Appointment with Fear, because there's like 3 of them that really pop up and kind of stand out.
Yeah.
She said that she recalled co-writing one song she thought was called Love Beyond Reason, but I looked up Love Beyond Reason, and that's by a Randy Stonehill. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I think Denver Smith sang the song, and he's actually on synthesizer on that Love Beyond Reason. The song she was talking about was called Love for the Moment, which Denver Smith wrote. And that's the scene where Carol and Bobby are playing hide and seek and they're getting ready to fuck.
Because that's foreplay.
Yeah. And then the other songs are called Measure of Fear, which is the song when Ruth is eating the cheese on the couch when she gets to that house. That's written by Christopher McGee and sung by Celeste Alexander. And then the big song, the whole dance number flash mob scene, is called Everywhere at Once, written and sung by Christopher McGee. But she had no recollection of that song at all. Okay. And then real quickly, I asked her if she ever watched the film and what she thought of it. She said that she watched it, while she was composing the score, but it was completely different, obviously, from the released version. And that she may have seen it again for the final mix. But she said basically all I can really remember is Akkad recut the film. Ramsey took his name off of it, but that they did keep her entire score. And she thinks that Akkad might have asked her to add a few more cues to his version. But she just said she remembered the film being fun and quirky. So I thought it was really nice of Andrea to take the time and answer questions. She was super sweet. I do recommend if anybody's into, musical scores, which I think a lot of listeners are, just 2.5, up to 4-minute segments, check out her work because it's pretty cool.
She doesn't have this movie listed on her site, so I'm glad that she talked about it. I was worried that she wouldn't want to bring it up. So that makes me feel better.
I'm going to probably close out one of with one of her songs.
So. Okay,
awesome. I only had one other crew member. Was Bruce Mead, one of the writers, who rarely wrote. He wrote the Rebel Highway, those Corman remake shows. He did the remake of Reform School Girl for Showtime, and he plays a cop in this. And he was second unit on a lot of films like In Cold Blood, Broke Down Palace, Return of Swamp Thing, and the Alice Cooper video for He's Back from the Friday the 13th video. So, which is a weird, what? How do you have that credit?
Right.
but how does the writer of this movie do an Alice Cooper video? But there you go.
Cool. Bruce Mead. Any other crew members?
No crew members, no.
All right, let's jump into the cast real quick. So there's some recognizable faces in here. It starts with the lead, Michelle, with one L, Little, who I guess she plays kind of the final girl of sorts in this, Carol. I think she's so adorable, Michelle Little.
She's cute.
I think to me, I feel like she could have been in a ton of 80s horror films, but she retired. She quit acting pretty early. She only acted for about 10 or 11 years. She quit in 1995 to raise a family. But her first acting credit was in 1984, playing Rusty Mars in Albert Pune's Radioactive Dreams, which you don't like that film too much.
I know it's me. That's the thing. I like
the idea of that movie.
Yeah.
It's no Doll Man. It's no Doll Man.
Okay. It's just with all of Pune's films, I know it's me. It's me. One of these days they're going to click for me. At least
there's
one
a
of
few
them click.
I've had a few of them click really well. Like Mean Guns is pretty good.
Okay.
And a few other ones that I'm like, oh yeah, I get what he's going for. Other ones like Cyborg, I remember seeing it, and I've just never liked it.
Yeah,
and I know people love it, and I love Van Damme movies, but it just doesn't work. But I know that one got back to pieces too.
All right, well, I don't feel bad now.
I mean, I've already talked about it. Doll Man, Tim Thomerson, and his nemesis is amazing too. I even like the Captain America he did.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, Michelle Little, I watched a few of her films I'd never seen before. There was a Canadian thriller called Blood Clan from 1990.
Okay.
It's slow, but I was thoroughly entertained, completely in the mood for something like this because me and the 90s blue light thrillers. Mm-hmm. It's very much what it is. She plays a woman who was adopted at a very young age after her cannibalistic family are killed by a bunch of soldiers in Scotland. And as she gets older, she starts learning about her real family. People are showing up dead in the village she lives in. And some people that know her backstory believes it's her. It's based on the true story of Katie Bain, which is Little's character in this like Katie Bain from like the 1800s, late 1800s. It's like a well-known Scottish cult leader, apparently.
Okay.
But again, I think it has a terrible ending. But like I said, I was in the mood for it, so I didn't hate it. It does have a child kill Erica.
Okay.
Put that to your list. About 40 minutes in, a little boy named Timmy is murdered, cut open by a knife. His heart is removed.
Is it Blood Clan?
Blood Clan, yeah, from 1990. And it also mentions another child kill, but they don't mention the kid's age. I watched one of her movies called Sweet Revenge from 1987. This was a Corman-produced action starring Nancy Allen and Martin Landau.
Oh.
Yeah, it sounds great. And if any like perverted listeners want to see Michelle Little naked, of course it's a Corman produced film, so she is naked in there along with Gina Gershon.
I always joke that his trick was like, oh, we have foreign investors and they want to see you naked.
Exactly.
And like in Galaxy of Terror, he's like, this foreign investor paid $1 million to see you get assaulted by a worm, so you have to do it. So just get under it. And they're like, but like, do you want this movie to get made? And everybody's like, oh, Roger Corman was so good to women. Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think we already talked about The Image from My Demon Lover. I had never seen it before, from 1987. I watched this. I guess this is probably Michelle Little's biggest performance, or she's a lead in it. She's this depressed woman named Denny who she just can't find a nice guy, and this creepy guy, Kaz, shows up, who whenever he gets horny, he turns into these different monsters, like you see in that image.
Okay.
And he murders women. So Michelle Little's character starts falling for him. She sees he's a monster, but she wants to help him, and the cops are looking for him at this point because he's a murderer. But I have no idea who this movie's made for, because you hate all the characters. It's terrible.
It's for teenage girls that had a crush on Scott Valentine from Family Ties.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
I saw it when it came out, and I have not rewatched it since 1987.
It's
15-year-old me was like, Scott Valentine's awesome. And he has long hair and he turns into a demon. This movie's awesome. And I'm sure if I would see it with old person eyes, I'd be like, what was I thinking?
Because she's such a defeated character. Like, she's written, like it's not a good light on, any relationship.
As you learn more about relationships and get older, you're like, oh, this is a bad relationship.
Yeah.
Like, this is just depressing. Like, he's a killer and she doesn't realize. Like, I've seen enough.
Lynn Shay pops up as a super bitchy waitress, which was kind of funny.
Okay.
And some of the practical effects are good, but yeah, this is one movie I really don't recommend.
Okay.
I do think Michelle Little's fun in it, but yeah, that's about it. I mean, there's other roles that she's had out there. Out of Bounds, starring Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah.
You seen that?
Mm-mm.
That was his big, I'm going to try to be not the nerd character. I'm going to be a football player. This is when he started getting on steroids and was like, allegedly, I'm not going to get sued by Anthony Michael Hall. Evil dies tonight. And he just started getting big.
The worst.
The absolute worst. Like, so upsetting. This is the same person that gave that tearful speech about the flare gun that he brought to school and brought everybody together in the Breakfast Club. Is also the Anthony Michael Hall that says evil dies tonight. Life's weird.
Speaking of the Breakfast Club, that Michael, how do you say his name? Weil, who plays Bobby in this?
Yeah.
He wants to be Bender from Breakfast Club so bad.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in a ton of teen movies and just never, not the leads though.
Fast Time at Ridgemont High, Valley Girl.
Tough Turf.
Yeah, I wanted to watch that when we covered Jack's Back.
It's good.
It's good. I need to watch that one.
Yeah.
He was in a lot of TV series too. Nash Bridges, Diagnosis Murder. Yeah. He looks very familiar, but he's hard to pinpoint, but he's a great little side character in those movies. We have Carrie Rimpson, who plays Heather. She's the mime who finds and keeps the baby during the whole movie. Probably best known as Maggie from Pumpkinhead. Mm-hmm. She's in Albert Band's Ghoulies 2, where she's the star. She's like the love interest, and sadly not a leading lady at all. I don't find her captivating. She's just kind of bland. She has small roles on Nightmare on Elm Street 2, that horror anthology After Midnight.
Yeah.
I love her makeup in this, though.
She's like Pris from Blade Runner. Like, what's...
In 1980s, Sam, when I grow up, all girls are going to have makeup like Pris. Yeah. That was my dream, that girls were all going to have that punk rock look, right? And no, it never happened.
And it's not, again, it's another question that's left hanging. It's not explained. I don't know if y'all noticed, but the Flash Mob, they have the same type of eye paint too. I have a theory about that Flash Mob.
Okay.
She looks like Gem in the Holograms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, or she's not ready to be in the Misfits, who are always cooler. But that's the worst thing. You guys didn't see the Gem movie, I hope, right?
I didn't know. I didn't see the movie. I had the Pizzazz doll when I was a kid, though.
My wife is as I am to G.I. Joe, my wife is the Gem. And so we had to go see it. We were the only two people in the entire theater. So we both sat in separate rows. And at the end, Kesha shows up as the leader of the Misfits. And that's what we wanted to see for the entire movie. We don't care about, I hate these movies here's Gem's origin. I don't care. Just get to it. I don't need to know that she's a girl who gets big on Instagram. I don't care about that. I just want to see girl bands fight. Isn't that the fun of Gem? But none of that's in there.
Yeah.
But that's why I liked Heather the most. Other than Kowalski, he's probably my favorite character.
Yeah, Douglas Rowe plays Kowalski, the goofy detective. He's in Mick Garris's Critters 2, playing Quigley. Yeah. You watched one of his movies, I saw.
Yeah, I watched The Legend of Black Charlie. I will not use the other title of the film, but if you want to look it up, that's the poster. I'm not saying it on this podcast.
How was Fred Williamson in it?
He's good.
His knees holding up?
He's younger in this, so he's okay running around, riding a horse. So it's basically about Charlie, who is, he's granted his freedom by his slave owner, but I think the slave owner's brother or son or somebody tears up his freedom letter, and so he beats him up and then goes on the run, and now he's got a bounty hunter after him, and he gets Dervell Martin and I can't remember the other people that go along with him, but they leave and they're just, going around and helping other people. And it's good. It's not, my favorite up there, but I think it's worth watching. It was on Canopy of all places. So it was not under the title that you don't want to pronounce out loud on Canopy. It was under The Legend of...
I had a guest on our show kept trying to get me to say the alternate title. He's like, what's the other title of that movie, Sam? I'm like, I don't know.
I'm not going to say it.
Not going to say it.
What a weird thing to try to get you to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
We have Norman, the homeless man who lives in the bed of Carol's truck, played by Danny Dayton. And he's popped up in a lot of small roles throughout his long career. Tim Burton's Ed Wood, he plays the sound guy. Mm-hmm. He plays Mr. Snodgrass in Rock and Roll High School 2, or Rock and Roll High School Forever with Queen Warnoff.
Okay.
He was in Guys and Dolls in 1955. I watched one of his earlier movies from 1952 called The Turning Point. He plays this sketchy mobster. It's a really great little noir type film starring William Holden. A lot of fast-talking gangsters, great ending. Neville Brand unexpectedly showed up. I didn't know he was in it. He played as this cocky hitman, and I was like, fuck yeah,
perfect.
High rating.
Well, that sounds great. What's the name of that movie?
It's called The Turning Point.
I'm going to write that down.
I forgot if I watched it on YouTube. It might even have been on Tubi, but it's a great one. Really good. Addis, probably the most boring character, emotionless Terminator of a killer, is played by Garrick Doan. He was in a film that you watched, I saw, Erica, called Land of Doom from 1986.
Yeah, it's one of those Mad Max ripoff post-apocalyptic movies where everyone's dressed like Judas Priest.
Right.
Great poster, though.
It does. It has a really good poster, but it doesn't live up to the poster.
No. I remember being so let down by it compared to the poster.
Yeah.
Because it looks like a Judas Priest poster, too.
Yeah, it does.
But he was also in Days of Our Lives. Got to shout that out.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then some of the smaller character roles in Appointment with Fear. You have Mike Gomez, who plays Little Joe, who I guess is a patient there. At first, I thought he might have been like a janitor. But he's the one who's telling Kowalski all about the Addis history and needing to kill his baby.
Okay.
I guess he really does have long arms.
Yeah, exactly. People might recognize him, though, from The Big Lebowski, where he plays the cop, where he's all leads. Yeah, sure. I'll check with the boys down at the crime line or crime lab. Leads. They got us working in shifts. Deborah Voorhees plays Ruth, one of the friends of Heather and Carol, who she's quickly murdered after eating a block of cheese.
Right.
Why is that cheese out there so long? Like someone eats it later. I'm like, that cheese is...
Yeah, Carol shows up.
And she is going to cut a piece of cheese. She's going to cut the cheese. Yeah. And then...
handwork, and doesn't do it.
But there's already cut pieces of cheese.
And then she stops. It's like 20 seconds on that cheese. And then she picks up a piece of cheese.
There's more time spent on that cheese decision than anything else that doesn't make sense in this movie. I rewatched it afterwards because I'm like, did that really happen? Did she really drop it? Because I wonder if they just dubbed over that, and and like Moustapha Akkad was like, no, pick up the cheese that's already cut.
They're directing her, and
yeah, they had to like throw it back on. That's why the Blu-ray needs to come out so we can see that.
Oh my god.
Then we have the other Fram Samantha is played by Pamela Bach, who's the Hoff's ex-wife. She died. She was Cowboy's girlfriend,
Right? Yeah.
And then we have Uncle Phil himself, James Avery, who plays Connors, who's I guess the cop who's looking over the sleeping Addis. He just kind of disappears from the movie altogether after seeing him glowing or something. Yeah, everybody knows who James Avery is. I love his voice acting work. Shredder in the original TMNT was Hulk Hogan in Hogan's Rock and Wrestling in the mid-'80s. He's such a great guy. I wish he was used more in this movie. Maybe he was originally. But yeah, the cast in Appointment with Fear is kind of a fascinating little time capsule when you look at it.
Yeah, there's 3 other weird ones. I don't know if you got Mrs. Pierce is Charlotte Spear from Planet of Dinosaurs, a movie that got re-edited into like 20 other movies. The old man's Hugo Stranger, who was Old Bill in Beetlejuice. And he's also in Vice Squads and Joysticks. All his roles are old man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my favorite was the mime's name is Ilonga. I did a huge internet search for like a whole day because I was like, I'm going to find Ilonga and have some info about her to bring to the show. Nothing. It's a cipher.
Yeah, I did that too, Sam. Because whenever I see a one, named like person in the cast, like in the closing credits, I'm like, okay, who was that? Usually it's like the hairdresser or something, and I'll look them up and nothing.
Yeah.
She's no Capuchine, who you get a lot out of her name. And then I don't know if you got Brioni Farrell. She's from The Student Nurses, which is one of my favorite of the Nurse Cycle movies, and she was Tula in Return of the Archons, a really important Star Trek episode. But she's one of the mums. She's the mum that I think she's the mum that. It's like, oh, my boyfriend has this really cool place.
She's an odd character. All these characters.
Heather's mom, right? And she's
Heather's mom.
And she doesn't. It takes her to the end of their conversation to be like, "Oh, are you babysitting again?" And not the first question out of her mouth being, "Are you babysitting again?" Or "Why do you have this random baby?"
When obviously her baby died, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's hinted at that. Like
he drowned, I think.
Yeah, so 51 minutes in, I time-stamped it because I was like, okay, I got to confirm with Sam and Lance, there's a dead kid in this. So Heather's younger brother apparently drowned in the bathtub because Carol makes a comment later when she sees the baby and is like, oh, he kind of looks like your brother.
And
sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm assuming that because again, no answers or no questions are answered.
All right. That's right. I'm sorry.
Out. And why does she have like the rubber ducky like floating around the house like to remind her all the time? Like she's stepping on it like throughout the house.
It transported from the time of the boy's death to then. I don't know.
The boy's soul went into the duck.
Yeah, there you go.
It constantly comes up and harasses her, and she must get rid of the duck to erase her past trauma.
Or maybe Addis is like, doing this, he's turning into the duck in some weird form to hound her.
I'll take it. Sure.
People are so cool with this baby being around. Like they're basically having a sex party, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's like if this was Chopping Mall, they'd all go to a furniture store and soft swing in a furniture store. A scene that I think about once a day. But like, they're like, oh, the baby's here at the cabin? Cool. And she's like, can I keep it for another day? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
If I showed up at a party with a baby, people are like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they just lay it around too. They just put it in the car seat, with not strapped in. They lay it on the bed and walk away.
Yeah.
It's just
the fact that she takes it in the first place from a woman who is sitting on a porch dying from a stab wound and is just like, cool, I'll take this baby.
Well, I think that's why that even though it's not specifically, laid out, that she's so her brother's death is what's causing her to do this. Like her baby brother's death, like it's kind of like
then set that up before
I know what
she takes the fucking baby. Oh my God. basic editing, storytelling. Come on, movie.
Also, when the mom gets stabbed, she's so nonchalant about getting stabbed. I've never seen anyone be like, okay.
She's tough. Yeah.
She's like, all right. And then she's just, also, there's no car seat for that baby. So I thought you would be kind of excited. Like, yeah, just throw that baby in the back of the truck.
They're just driving and staring at it and like staring at the baby where she could have a sudden stop and that baby just flies into the dash.
It's just, the whole thing just makes no sense because like, she's driving away from Addis and she stops at this house. She knocks on the door. We don't know why she's there. And then she goes and puts the baby in the bushes and just sits there and waits for Addis to show up and stab her. Again, has no reaction. And then she tells some random fucking mime stranger with blue eye makeup, here, take my baby. Like,
yeah.
So here's a theory of mine. The flash mob, like Norman, they're kind of like, because Norman talks to God. He's the homeless guy. And he talks to God and God's talking back to him in some weird form. But spoiler alert, Norman gets decapitated. Mm-hmm. And I feel like God sent down the flash mob to plant that weird flagpole thing.
Maple.
Huh?
It's a maple, right? Because it's got
a maple. It's got the ribbons. Yeah. And they all have that blue painted face stuff. Uh-huh. So maybe the mom who gives Heather the baby thinks she's some sort of angel because she has the blue face. That's my theory. Boom.
Could you convince somebody that this movie is elevated horror? And I say yes, because it's got a maypole like Midsummer. It's got weird stuff that happens for no reason, and you're like, yeah, this is what he really meant. Like my rubber duck explanation. People like, he was a genius. Like this movie must be discovered. My first note says this opening is so fucking basic. It's just like slide images from Egyptian, like hieroglyphics. It looks like you're about to watch like a National Geographic special. You have no clue that you're about to be dropped into a woman getting stabbed by a dude in a van. It does not prep you at all.
Yeah.
That whole opening scene is crazy. Like Kowalski hitting the lady's cart and then, the cop stopping him. Yeah. Did you guys notice too, he called the cop a dork as he was walking off?
Yeah.
Like, go help that woman, dork. Like I just, that whole opening scene is when I knew like, okay, I'm going to fucking love this movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's all about the cast.
Yeah.
I mean, the plot has no meaning, but you fall in love. Everybody is so committed and they're memorable characters. That's why all these, small roles, I wanted to go over some of the actors because they're just all memorable.
My theory is like, this is all the second tier characters getting their own movie. Like if Ducky was the lead in the movie, this is it. So they're all like, the weird quirky people that get pushed to the background, right? Like a Crispin Glover role, like they're the lead in this. And it's like, okay, we have a mime girl, a girl who's really into audio surveillance, and a homeless guy who lives in the back of the truck, and a guy who has a motorcycle with a mannequin in it.
That's a perfect way to put it. All these side characters get their own movie.
Yeah.
They get their own quest. They're not NPCs anymore. They're the leads. And like, here's what happens with them.
My theory is more so that this is here's what we have movie.
Yeah.
Where it's like we have I forgot what it's called, but it's in your review, Sam, the recording device like John Travolta has in Blowout. What's it called?
Yeah. A parabolic mic.
Parabolic mic. Thank you. We have a parabolic mic. We have a motorcycle with a sidecar. We have a mannequin. Someone said we could use their baby. And we have this abandoned house or house that's vacant in the middle of nowhere in the desert.
We have a bunch of dolls.
We have a bunch of
dolls. Are you saying this is an improv movie? This sounds like improv cues.
It is. Thank you. This is exactly where I'm going. This is an improv movie of like we laid it out. This is like a yard sale movie where all these things are strewn about the lawn and Akkad drives by and is like, wait a minute, let me grab all this shit and we'll figure out how to make a movie out of this. And like, I see there's a raccoon in the trash can. Bring that raccoon too.
There's an owl up there in the tree. Get a shot of that.
Yeah, but let's do it. Let's do a nod to Blowout and record the owl hooting. Like, yeah.
If that's the case, it makes this movie much more impressive.
Is it that, or is it that Ramsey got taken advantage of by actors who were sick of playing second bananas, and they're like, do you know, like actors always want to get stuff in as like their little acting things? Like the one kid, Bobby's like, I mean, what if I had a mannequin that I took everywhere with me and I was in love with her and I got in fights with people about it? And Ramsey was like, okay, yeah, I've never directed a movie before. I guess that's how actors do stuff. And the other girl's like, I'm going to paint my face blue. And he's like, I love it. And then finally when Moustapha saw it, he was like, what the fuck did you film? And he's like, I got to try to save this thing. And then he went back and shot it. I like your idea better, but I think all these things could be true.
I think all of our theories are true. That this is an elevated yard sale actors taking advantage movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked about Kowalski being my favorite character.
Yeah.
Do y'all have favorite characters in this, or is it just everybody?
The raccoon.
Norman's my favorite because he's so positive. Like for where his life's at, he's living in the back of a Mazda and talking to God. Like it seems like he should be a tragic outside of spoiler warning, getting his head cut off. He's very positive, and he also is like a servant for these kids.
Oh, he's sweet. Always wanted to park their cars and stuff.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'll do that. And he's dressed so nice for being a homeless person.
Yeah.
Like he has like a nice he really feels like a David Lynch character that wandered in from one of his movies and was like, oh, is this the wrong set? Okay, well, I'll just play this part in your movie. And everybody's cool with it.
Yeah, but he gave me George Burns vibes too from Oh God, You Devil. Like sometimes the way he was talking, like I was like, okay, some sort of that's where the guardian angel like kind of popped in my head. He
kind of talks like a sitcom character that looks to the camera and he's like, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. And like, they all do. Kowalski's like that too, because like he should have slide whistle noises. Like whenever he throws a cigarette, it should just go, yeah.
He's absolutely my favorite. One of my favorites is when he randomly, I think he's talking to Connors, James Avery, when he's talking about his dream. A red pigeon was desperately trying to stop a clock from reaching 12 by attacking it again and again. A bat flew out and killed the pigeon, only to become impaled on the hands of the clock as it struck midnight. Like, what the fuck? And then he casually says, it's unfortunate we're so civilized. Otherwise, I'd cut your throat and be done with it.
Yeah. That part, was am I watching the same movie that we switched?
They had to have added so many, gone back and done a bunch of voiceovers and posts. Cause there's a lot of scenes where you can tell the dialogue is added later. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Why does she put the baby in a bush? I don't know.
To hide it from the dad or from Addis.
We're the worst hiding job ever. She's like, oh, here. It just drops the baby in a bush.
Yeah. I think, I think you mentioned, before we started recording, Sam, that this is a made by aliens movie because there's so many things in it where when you walk away with this many questions and you ask why are people doing things? I understand that happens even in stories that are told competently and where you're like, wait, why did someone do that? And those are more sort of plot hole things. This is just one of those things where it does have that made by aliens feel to it because we never get explanations for why anyone does anything or the conversations that are happening. None of the dialogue means anything. Kowalski and Joe are talking at one point and he says are you going out on the streets? They scare me. And it's what, why, who, what does that have to do with anything? The maypole, how does Carol or anyone who's telling, I can't remember who tells her to stab him.
Kowalski.
Yeah. How does Kowalski know to use the maypole to stab
because
him?
Little Joel told him something about piercing something. I feel because he kept saying pierce him or something.
Okay, well, fine. But where are you going to bring these things together?
It doesn't make sense.
It's the anti-Chekhov's gun movie too.
Thank you.
The parabolic mic. Surely this is going to play into it. And she has all these guns, and someone says earlier, you're really good with guns. None of that matters.
Yeah, she pulls her first instinct when she meets Addis is to light him on fire. And then she gets a huge fucking gun.
She gets an AK-47 or something. She pulled it out twice. When that happened, I was howling. I was like, holy shit, she's such a...
That gun came from another... It's also that alien thing. If you've ever seen Last American Virgin, the Canon guys had already filmed that as Lemon Popsicle, right? So when they brought the parts of it to America to make Last American Virgin, there's parts where they're like, oh yeah, we'll just put in some American music and stuff and it'll make sense. At the end, he brings her an orange tree to tell her he loves her. And that's a major thing in their culture in Israel. in America, nobody knows why he brings her an orange tree. And it's like, what the fuck would he get her that? and you know, that they go on Globus, like, oh, it makes sense. It's lovely. It's beautiful. And it's like, that's what this feels like. Oh, of course, everybody knows about Addis, King of the Woods. And they know that he needs to be stabbed by a maple. Yeah. And we'll build the dramatic tension at the end through that. And you're like, nobody knows about this Egyptian god.
Yeah.
Nobody
knows. And then, like, getting back to your, like, checkoff point, the dolls that they keep showing them. And then when Carol tries to use, like, one of them as a decoy and wraps it up, and then Addis just walks out with the actual baby. And I'm like, why did we set that up for no payoff? Like, this movie, like, set up payoff. There's basic shit not happening in this movie.
Somebody saw a Jalo and, like, they always have these weird dolls. And
right.
Just throw a scene and it works in those. Yeah, because thematically it works in those movies. And this is like me trying to make a lasagna that has Swedish fish in it. There's, like, stuff that you're like, what? I guess it works. It doesn't. The other note I had for the first scene was it just had fart synth. And that's all, because it sounds like there's one scene where it's like as they're walking around.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the score, like we already talked about the score from Andrea, but there's a scene where she walks into the library. I guess Carol walks in the library to talk to Ruth, her friend Ruth. Mm-hmm. And it's just this overlapping tense melody that's kind of out of place for the whole movie.
Yeah.
Some of the score work is really great. The chase when Kowalski's chasing Bobby on his little motorcycle and sidecar, that sounds like something from, like, Smokey and the Bandit or something. It's all danger. It's like, it's just very odd, very very strange music.
I think they were like, we just need some thematic music for this, like how she writes those 3-minute kind of things now, and they're like, we need a chase theme. And you're not going to get to see the movie until you do the music, and, like, this is just kind of what we need. And, like, they've answered the assignment a lot of times, but the assignment is just weird. Like, it feels like an Exquisite Corpse thing, like that they handed parts of the movie to other people that weren't seeing the end of it.
Yeah.
And it kind of came together like that. I also wrote defund the horror movie police. I always say, like, defund the Jalo police, I always say, because they're the worst. Like, he's worse than any Jalo cop. Like, he's just basically just walking around. Nobody's rights are considered. Like, he's just throwing tracking devices in everybody's cars. Mm-hmm. And the tracking device sounds like a submarine. Like, how does it work? There's no visual. It starts beeping louder when he's near them. Like, you're in LA, like we think, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, how are you going to track somebody like that? This seems like the worst plan.
Yeah.
And, like, I like how he goes up and talks to them and he, like, just casually throws it in the car. Like, you're not, like, Spider-Man used to do it and it would stick under the bumper and nobody saw it. Like, that's the right way to do it. This is the wrong way.
Yeah, Kowalski's so great. I mean, him running out of gas while he's chasing Addis. That's just another scene like, what? He's, oh, come on. What? Like, tossing a cigarette. As soon as, in the very beginning, when he misses the bucket, tossing a cigarette, I was like, I love this guy.
There's nobody in this movie that is a focal point, is another problem with it. Like, who is our protagonist?
Right.
Like, there's several of them, and then they introduce other people just to die. Like, the one girl that cuts the cheese,
Ruth,
like,
right?
She shows up, she carves a piece of cheese, shows some side boob, jumps in a pool, and then matter-of-factly gets stabbed. And then after that, there's, like, a kaleidoscope of cuts where we get, like, baby doll head, like, side of the building, like, statue. And it's like an editing tour de force. It doesn't match anything else in the movie. Like, it's just like a scene, or I think they're like, well, we need a body count in slashers, and we probably need to see someone naked. So this scene will keep the maniacs, losers, whatever you call them, like, sated, because you need to have a couple kills, but it doesn't. Right. It doesn't fit in. I have all my notes on this are just like, why does Carol have a long range microphone? Why does Norman live in the back of a truck? Why does Bobby have a mannequin in a sidecar? And I started feeling like Captain Kirk in Star Trek V. I don't know if you've ever suffered through that movie. Mm-hmm. But, like, you know how, like, when they finally get to find God in space, and like, everybody's like, oh my God, it's so great, we're getting to meet God. And of course, William Shatner's like, I have a question. Why does God need a starship? And everybody gets mad at him. It's the most perfect Captain Kirk line ever. Like, if a killer can leave his body, why does he need a fucking van to drive around in? Like, he should be able to just teleport anywhere. Like, he doesn't need this white van.
That's I guess that again, that's like a that's a Halloween callback. I feel like he's escaped from a mental institution, a mental hospital,
Yeah.
and he's driving her like it. Yeah, I feel like he's pulling. Yeah, there's no logic here.
No, none of it.
And we haven't really talked specifically about the dance scene because it is very memorable. It's like literally 5 minutes long, and this flash mob pops out and just starts dancing.
I threw my hands up. I was like, "What?"
That scene, you already mentioned kind of Twin Peaks, David Lynch characters. That's the scene that really got me because it starts off with this really, funny song, lyrics are being sent. And then that's fading out while this really eerie kind of synth note is just holding and drowning everything out. And that's what it kind of made, it felt like a David Lynch world because he kind of creates these worlds where they're humorous, very weird. You're kind of settling in, but then they get so weird that they're scary and it's unsettling. And that's
also
that's
like it
moment.
Feels like the movie is heating up. It feels like the action's about to happen. Like, you know what this movie needs? Dance.
5 minutes of the
that works in Bollywood movies. Let's try it in our movie. I don't think it does in this one. Why does Heather put on a mime show for her senile grandparents in the beginning anyway?
Oh, that couple is so funny. Yeah. He's like, who has a birthday party this early? Just,
I mean, it's true. Why would you?
It is true.
I love their conversation. And you also get to hear it later because she recorded it.
Yes.
In my review, I compared her to like the band Negativland. I have a member called the Weatherman, and like he recorded everything for his entire life. He walked around with a microphone like this, and he wired his mom's entire house. So like there's songs of Negativland songs of just his mom talking about nothing that show up in the middle of the song. And like, that's who she is. Like, she's just recording stuff. And even the guy says to her at one point, he's like, Bobby says like, why are you doing all this? Why are you recording all this? Yeah. They have that moment where they're both like, where she's like, you drink all the time. Why? And he's like, so don't kill myself. Which is, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, he gets it. Like, this is my character. And she's like, he's like, yeah, well, I drink all the time. Why do you record everything? And she's like, just so that she doesn't really have an answer for it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
even the script writers couldn't even come up with an answer. They're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
A normal movie would say, like she was recording everything because she wasn't paying attention when her brother drowned. So now she's over paying attention and analyzing things. Again, I'm trying to make the elevated version of this, the neon one that comes out next year, Appointment with Fear, the remake. It's not a remake. It's a reimagining.
Really.
Yeah. But it just seems like you could connect the dots, but you have to like write your own movie to connect the dots.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's what I love about this movie. I again, you know me, I would recommend any movie to anyone. I think it'll be somebody's favorite movie or somebody will enjoy it, hopefully as much as I do. But what about you guys? Would you guys not recommend this to people?
I think everyone should experience it at least once. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to, we're not a point and laugh podcast,
right?
And so this isn't something I would want fucking like, how did this get made, to get a hold of, because they're not even like, they don't even like actually ask that question. They just point and laugh at like everything that's like weird and off about it. Anyway, if you understand, like, because we've spoiled nothing. Like, I hope people like who haven't watched this movie listen to this because we didn't spoil anything. Like, there's no way to do that in this film.
There's a freeze frame that you guys have to see to believe.
Yeah, it's just, I do. I think it's one of those. It's a curio, really. Yeah. And so I feel like those should always get some attention, and it will. It's going to get some fucking Blu-ray release within the next 2 years, I guarantee.
Yeah, fingers crossed. That's all I'm saying.
I can't wait to see the artwork Vinegar Syndrome makes for it. Like, it's going to look so rad. You know what I mean? You're like, that's the movie I want to see. Bill and I always talk about that. It's like the poster that they made for that movie is so much better than the actual movie. Like, make that movie.
Yeah,
that's the movie we want to see. I do have a spoiler though for the end of the movie, if I can say it.
Yeah, no, go for it.
So like Addis, King of the Woods, which I didn't even mention. I did all the research into Addis on my review, but he's a god who was raised by a he-goat, set to marry the daughter of King Midas. And as their wedding song was being sung, his wife looked so beautiful, he was so moved by it that he cut off his penis. And any priest that follows Addis must do the same and become a eunuch before becoming a priest. He's also the Phyregan god of vegetation, as the act of cutting off his penis is a representation of fruit which dies in winter and only be reborn in the spring. So I don't know if Addis, the character in this, followed him, but if he's a priest of him, yeah. He also has to kill a baby once a year. So I love that. Like, what a cycle to have to go through, right?
Yeah, respect.
Yeah, I knew he'd be your favorite. So like, but at the end, when he gets killed, he turns into a bag of leaves. And my theory is that's the one bag of leaves Moustapha Akkad brought to Halloween that they had to keep collecting. And he's like, this will bring the luck to this movie. I have been saving this bag of leaves since 1977.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all watching this movie. We need a cocktail to enjoy. What, Sam? You're infamous for knowing and creating cocktails and having drink recipes for the drive-in asylum double features. And what would you make? What would you make for Appointment with Fear?
This is so simple. A sidecar.
Yeah.
So, but I changed it up a bit because it has to be a sidecar that doesn't make sense. And so cognac. Let's go with like 1.5 ounces of bourbon. And let's do an ounce of whatever your favorite orange liqueur is. I like triple sec fine. There's a couple other brands you can use. And then 1/2 ounce of lemon juice. And if you want to get fancy, do a lemon twist. Basically, you just shake them all together with ice, strain it into a glass, and just put your twist in. But I've seen other people do sidecars with a ton of like sugar rims and stuff like that. I don't think you have to get that fancy for this one. And as I said to Eric earlier, maybe you should put some LSD into this drink as well before you watch it, because it'll probably make – this feels like a movie that if you watched it during a bad trip, you would probably never recover. You'd be like one of those like Dragnet characters that jumps out a window. Like this movie could really take you places, I think.
I'd be saying he has long arms for the rest of my life.
I love that line reading because I guess he really does have long arms.
All right. What about double feature picks? Sam, we're going to go with you first.
Oh, man. So thematically, I have two, I said to you guys. Mm-hmm. Thematically, I think that this really feels like Boarding House.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because they're both set. We didn't even get into how wild the house is. Like, it's so freaky.
Yeah.
And like both movies kind of take place in this empty house in the middle of nowhere with a pool that's really important to it. That movie also makes no sense, but it makes more sense than this. Like thought, isn't it? Like, so like, yeah. And then the other one is a movie that Severin just put out that I love, The Mummy and the Curse of the Jackal.
I'm waiting for that to get in.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That movie has a 2-minute scene where a scientist tries to explain to a newly reborn Egyptian princess how to put on a maiden form bra, and explains it. And he's never put on a bra, obviously, because, guys are horrible with bras.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I don't know why they made them. She's like, this is so strange. Why would anyone wear it? It's so painful. This scene goes on so long. And compared to the rest of the movie, it's another movie like, why is any of this happening? Why is David Carradine in it? Or John Carradine. I mean, John Carradine shows up and he's like a mummy expert. Where do you find one of these? There's so many weird things in that movie. So that one feels like it. And like, I want more people to watch that movie. I can't believe that they found a better copy, because I've been watching the cruddy VHS copy I have for years. So to know that there's, this magical version of it that came out, that's what I would recommend.
Awesome.
Those are good. What about you, Erica?
One of my first thoughts, this isn't my official pick, but one of my first thoughts was William Friedkin's The Guardian from 1990. It's about an evil dryad or like tree nymph who inserts herself as a nanny in a home so that she can sacrifice babies, and their souls live in this huge, creepy oak tree with baby faces all over it. I know a lot of people don't like this movie. I do. I feel like before I went to go rewatch it years ago, John framed it for me as like, think of it as Friedkin's Italian horror movie. And in that context, it totally works. So I would hope that if anyone hasn't seen it or hasn't seen it for a while, that they'd give it another shot with that lens. But my official like double feature pick is the layup answer. And that's Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers from 1995.
It really is the perfect choice. I mean, it's
like, it was the first one that came to mind when I was like, okay, you have the Halloween connection. You have this like weird movie that's about the cult, and it's just, it really does go with it pretty well. Not as, I do think that your pick too, though, The Wicked Stepmother is.
Yeah, it's a shit show of a film and then production. Like, I think it was a Blu-ray wish list of mine, and it's all the reasons are the same for Appointment with Fear. I'd like to hear from Malik Akkad and hear what he has to say about this. I don't know if I think Ramsey Thomas is still around. I want to hear what he says. talk to the composer. Let's hear more from her. But yeah, I was thinking, obviously I'm not going to pick another Alan Smithy, blood-sucking pharaohs in Pittsburgh. I did think for a little bit of the kind of pieced together mess with Donald Pleasance, Nosferatu in Venice. I thought might have been a good fit, because I almost feel like what's missing from Appointment with Fear? Donald Pleasance. Like he would have just fit right in with this cast. I feel like.
Isn't it shocking he's not in it? Because I always think, did he ever say no to any movie? Do you know what I mean?
I wonder if he was filming something. I didn't look at what was happening in '85, what he was involved in. Obviously,
he might have been in South Africa doing those 21st century ones he did. The Poe movies he did for them, which are awesome.
Yeah. So, I'm going with Wicked Stepmother. I think the two together would be fun to watch, too. Just Betty Davis saying, peace out halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. What other actor would have added to this movie for you? Like, to me, like, this needs, like, what if, as much as I like the cop in it, if this had like I'm trying to think of who would be good. Do you know what I mean? Like a stronger leading man, like a John Saxon, maybe it'd be a totally different movie. You'd be like, man,
I'm never going to say no to John Saxon being in anything, but
yeah,
I feel like one actor that I feel like has the perfect sort of wizard look to him that could have just shown up in like a black cloak and delivered some like monologue that just doesn't fit with the movie at all, but does somehow about like what's happening. Christopher Plummer.
Oh,
Chris Plummer. George Buck Flower could have popped up.
George Buck Flower could have shown you. He could have been Norman.
He could have been Norman. Yeah, he would have been great.
He plays a bum and everything
I do
else.
like Norman, though. I do like the Norman.
Yeah.
Oh my God, George Buck Flower is the perfect. How wasn't he in this? Like there had to be like some kind of bat signal in Hollywood. Like, we're making a movie with a homeless kid in the back of a truck, and he's like, "Did you call him? Like, he's busy. He's not busy. Where's Aldo Ray? Come on, get somebody."
I do think. I mean, as I was watching, I did feel like Donald Pleasance was missing from this movie.
That totally is.
I felt that.
I mean, a lot of things could have been in this movie, and they weren't, and that's fine.
Yeah,
It also feels like they did spend money, but it feels really cheap.
Yeah,
like, Halloween 6 looks like a movie, like as bad as it is in parts. Like there's some nice shots and it looks good. Like this feels like beyond straight to video looking. It feels more like Boarding House than other films. Like it looks like just weird.
Yeah,
but that's why I love it. I'm so glad that you guys brought this one up, because like it reinvigorated my love of this movie watching it like 3 times in a row. I don't think you should. While I do think you should recommend it to people, you should not watch it 3 days in a row.
No,
I watched like 40 Jess Franco movies in 20 days once, and I've never been the same. And and this is a similar experience.
I believe it.
Well, thanks for joining us, Sam, and just loving the movie as much as I do. I know that.
I enjoy it, and I am confounded by it. And that's the thing about movies like this, is I like it when something is so off that I feel something different than just watching a standard predictable movie where I know what's going to happen, or even like, it doesn't even have to be something predictable, but something where like I'm very familiar with the director. And so I can anticipate a lot of it, or it feels familiar, or it's like a warm blanket. Like this rips the blanket off of you and is like, puts the fucking Clockwork Orange eye things on you and is like, look at it, just look at it and experience it. And we're going to, we're not gonna put eye drops in here. We're putting LSD in your eyes and see what that does to you. So I appreciate being given a different movie watching experience for sure.
This is why I love your guys' show. I'll fanboy out for a second. One of the reasons I love your show is like, it's so easy. If you look at all the other people that post stuff on YouTube and stuff to shit all over this movie, it would be really easy to be like, it's so bad, it's good. And to like tear it apart versus like to try to understand it and figure out why it happened and to take the time to talk to the person that scored it and to think through it critically. It's a lot harder. It's easy to punch down on movies. And I think every movie is a miracle that it even happened, that it got filmed and it got out there and that we found it. And then it refound an audience 30 years later or 40 years later, And it's like, I love that you guys do that with so many films. And yeah, I think someone got mad at me once because I was making fun of a Fulci movie. And I'm like, do you realize how much I love Fulci? Like, it's like, it's but I can also make fun of Manhattan Baby and say how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
And how goofy it is, because it's like it's like how I would make fun of one of my best friends or like a family member, because it's like a loving feeling. And I get that from every time you guys talk about movies. Like I've never rage quit listened to your guys' show before, and like I do other podcasts at times. So I enjoy every episode. So getting to be part of it was like a super big thrill. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Sam. That means a lot.
Yeah, touched. Thanks, Sam.
And you're going to be helping in an indirect way with the next episode too, because you actually got a chance to interview the director of my next pick. So I'm going to be referencing your interview in our next episode. I may even pick your brain a little bit further about that. I have waited this entire podcast to talk about this movie, to devote an entire episode to this movie that I love so much. And I am forcing listeners, you finally have to fucking watch this movie, because Lance still hasn't, even though I've told him about it multiple times.
I have it. I have it on my shelf now.
I literally bought it for you. I'm like, fucking watch the movie, Lance. Way Bad Stone, 1991. I'm so excited for this movie. This is a shot on video sword and sorcery movie with Ren Fair, quote unquote, actors and backyard wrestlers LARPing in the backwoods of Florida. There is horror, but most of it's in like the last 20 minutes. It's about a wizard who's on a mission to get his stone back, because it's like, a way bad stone, man. So the director that I mentioned is Archie Waugh. I'm going to link Sam's interview with him in show notes for this, so that you can read that after you watch the movie in anticipation of our next episode. As of this recording, it has 271 views on Letterboxd. The standard edition Blu-ray that was released by Bleeding Skull is still available as of this recording, either through Vinegar Syndrome's site, Orbit, DVD, probably Diabolic, other online retailers. You can find it. I don't know if it's going to be on sale for Vinegar Syndrome's like halfway to Black Friday, or not halfway, Black Friday sale, but that'll be in November. Anyway, I want everyone to experience the joy that is in this movie, because this is truly, when we talk about like DIY movies and you can see the love behind it, this is what this movie is. And it's so fun. It is so fun. Sam, I know you love this movie too.
Oh my God. Like, when it came for sale, like if they charged double for it, I would have paid it.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So excited to get it. And Archie, the director, is great. He actually said to me, that his mother and sister are both passed on, and this is like a document because they're both in the movie.
Oh.
So he can kind of see what they looked like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like one of the few documents he has of his sister talking. She's one of the bar wenches in one of the scenes. And he said it really captures her before she got sick. So he watches that. Also, he's played Dracula like hundreds of times on stage, and his family is like world famous for the dogs that they raise. They raise poodles. I know way too much about him. We had like a 9-hour conversation. The interview is like way edited down.
Yeah.
But my wife is like, this interview is insane. Like, I can't believe you're getting all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I know. I hate
Erica, you have to message Sam, get some more.
Yeah, no, I'll get some more tidbits for the episode for sure.
So few. I can only think of 2 or 3 other shot on video Conan ripoffs, which it's a hard thing to do, right? Because you need the costumes and the effects, and you need people that can fight and look convincing. This has all of that. Like, it's awesome. Like, it's like if it had like a full budget, and it would be as good as any of the Conan ripoffs that came out of the US, I think.
Yeah, I believe it. But I also love it for exactly like what it is. Like, I love that they didn't have a budget, because like then, I don't care that I can see zippers on the back of the costumes or anything like that. When you love what you're doing this much, it's just so good. So this is also going to be my Bleeding Skull pick for our Horror Gives Back challenge that we're doing for people.
October's coming.
Horror Gives Back. Donate $1 or more per horror movie that you watch to charity. We've got one fundraiser set up for Best Friends Animal Society, and you can donate to that or another charity of your choice if you'd prefer. This is going to be my Bleeding Skull picks, so I'll be sharing my full list of my picks for the month on our Discord. I'll probably link it in a story on Instagram at some point too, and Lance will be sharing his list soon too, I believe, because I think your pick for next month is also one of your horror
Yeah, will be my
perspectives.
late October pick. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I can't wait. I've been putting my list together. I'm going to do an episode of my show with all my picks.
Oh, fun.
nice.
Yeah. Can't wait to listen to that. We'll put, we'll link that when we do our episode too. So,
Awesome.
So Sam, thanks again for joining us. I know we already gushed a lot about you and all the work that you do. Can you tell people where to find and follow you on socials? The stuff that you're doing with Bill and all those good places.
Sure. So you can come to the site. It's B&S About Movies.com. That's also the name of the podcast. It's on anywhere you get podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, all the different things. Find us where you find podcasts. And there's when you get there, there's a link to all my different stuff, my different socials. I'm on almost everything. It's either B&S About Movies or Sam Panico on stuff. And then on every Saturday night, we're coming back the first weekend in October. We're on a break right now, but we do 2 movies every Saturday night. Bill Van Ryn, who publishes the zine Drive-In Asylum, which is amazing. Like, Bill is the king of going through old newspapers and finding full ad campaigns and breaking down how movies changed their ads, who was carrying that ad, movies that you didn't even know had this title, and like figuring out the mysteries of them. We kind of do that on the show where we show 2 films. We have 2 cocktails, and you guys have been on the show. We had a blast when you guys were on.
That was fun, so much fun.
Yeah, and you guys definitely have to come back. Like we were just talking about it. So
Would love to.
And have you guys back. But it's so much fun doing it. We have a pretty nice community of folks that come every week and watch. And I think there's obviously crossover. We have some of the same folks that if you like horror and weird movies and stuff. I know that Cryptid Dark Secrets is going to be one of our movies when we come back because I fell in love with that movie. I did the Con Something Weird challenge from your Discord, and I did so many Something Weird movies, like a couple hundred this summer.
Oh,
and
awesome. Yeah.
So we have a lot of like crazy stuff coming up. But yeah, thanks. And I just love movies, like obviously. And I love sharing and talking to other people about them. Because if you think about it in your life, like how many people can you just make like a Jess Franco or Bruno Mattei reference and they're like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And but then when you say to someone like, oh my God, like his shot on video stuff in the Philippines is amazing. You're like, yes, this is somebody. So when I listen to the show, I'm like, these are people I can talk to about movies. This is wonderful. I don't feel so alone in middle of Western Pennsylvania.
We got to support each other. I did want to point out too that work on special features on like some video releases on like Visual Vengeance and others. Can you share folks where they can find you on any of those releases? Yeah,
so they are available. MVD has them, mvdshop.com, and Diabolic has them. We are on Suburban Sasquatch, which is a wonderful movie. I love that movie. So I was so excited to get invited. And I think there's 4 altogether that we've been on, but we've recorded like 10 of them. But all Visual Vengeance and stuff's amazing because not only do you get the movie, you get like a poster, like the extras are crazy, how many extras. And like now that I've been doing stuff for them, like I've got to interview almost all the directors that shot these. And like it's been like a dream for me to like Brett McCormick, who did The Abomination, which is one of my favorite movies ever. I got to interview him and he's been on the show a couple of times now. And it's amazing to get to meet these people and learn like, well, how did you shoot this? Like what would drive you to make a $500 shot on video movie in the middle of Texas? You know what I mean? And put it together. And that's a joy. So Despiser is the newest one. That's going to be out in October. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it yet or not.
I haven't yet. I was waiting for when you mentioned the release of that, I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to pick that one up because it looks crazy.
It's like Lord of the Rings was made by a Canadian Christian cult. It's the best way. It's not a Christian movie, but it kind of feels like it. And it's kind of like The Stand. And it's kind of like if you ever played like old like offshoot D&D games, it's like someone filmed their D&D campaign and it has like the graphics from like a PlayStation 1 game. And it's awesome. Like it's so good. This is why I love working with Visual Vengeance because we made a joke when we were recording the commentary that this movie should come with a troll because there's a possessed troll. So there's a lot of Evil Dead in this movie too.
Yeah.
And so they made a troll. And if you buy it at Diabolic, you get a troll wearing a Despiser t-shirt.
Amazing.
Which is like, I can't believe that we actually got merch made from something that we did. So that's really exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my dream, I'm putting it out into the universe. Beyond this movie getting released, if anybody wants to do a new Night Train to Terror release, I'm willing to talk for 200 hours about that movie. I have so many things to say about that. I've devoted like so much of my dumb life to rewatching that movie. And my wife said, "Do we have to watch this again?" Like, okay. So like during the day, like I go in my office and just watch stuff and don't bother. So that's one of them.
Awesome.
But yeah. Thanks for letting me plug that stuff.
Of course, yeah. Folks, we'll put links to all of that in show notes, where you can pick up some of the Blu-rays that Sam and Bill have worked on. You can read. There's so many reviews to read, but really just if you follow Sam on Letterboxd, that's your best bet, because you'll be able to see, like, you're not finding that movie first, folks. Sam is. So, and you'll be able to link to his review or just read it right there on Letterboxd. Speaking of which, you can follow me there, as well as Instagram and Twitter at Hex Massacre.
Yeah, I'm on Letterboxd as well, and Instagram at Schibi.
All right, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you back next episode for Way Bad Stone. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week, and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.